Courtney Irving, and I'm the owner of Chapel Hill Vintage Jewelry on Ruby Lane. I'm here in my studio with Courtney, and we're going to talk today about 5 things you need to know about Regency Jewelry. The first thing I always like to talk about is the history of the company for Regency Jewelry. And this one's a bit of a mystery because there's several company names out there are associated with Regency Jewelry. There's just Regency, there's Regency Novelty Company, and Regency Jewelry Company. So it's a little bit confusing, and there's not a lot of information out there about the history of the company. What we do know is that it was a family named Powlowitz who owned the Regency Novelty Company in New York City, and they manufactured Regency between the years of 1950 and 1970. And that's a pretty narrow time frame. Doesn't mean that you can't find the pieces, because you certainly can, but really narrow time frame. So it helps with dating. You know, you can't be outside of those dates and have a true story. The jewelry was sold directly to department stores in New York and Chicago and other large cities, and many of them were on hang tags. So we're going to talk next about number 2, which is the signatures. Okay, Regency is pretty straightforward in terms of how it's marked. The first you can see very clearly is the tag. So this one says Regency, and the bracelet that you see is not marked anywhere else. So they did use tags on quite a bit of the early jewelry. The second is just the word Regency on a small round oval, I should say oval cartouche. And on this one, you don't see any copyright. Regency used copyright on some of their pieces and not on others. So where we used to say that, you know, when you saw a copyright, it was post-1955, for Regency only, that's not true, because they just did things in the 1960s that didn't use copyright at all. And then the last one is very hard to see, but it's Regency Jewels, again, on a little cartouche. Much more rare than Regency. Most often you're going to see that mark Regency. Okay, so number 3 is art glass. And I started off collecting with this piece right here. It's got the blue large drop glass stones. All of this is glass, and of course the glass rhinestone. But I so loved that piece that I decided, and I started seeing other colors, that I decided I was going to start a small collection and see how many different colors I can get. This one, beautiful green. Some of these came with the drop earrings, and some of them came with just all rhinestones that match the rhinestones in the pin. But they're all beautifully done. Red is usually the most rare of in costume jewelry in general. But you can see so far I've got green, red, blue, darker green, pink, light blue, and then one that's very similar to the first one that I started off with. So these are art glass drop. If you go out and you see big droplets like this, I bet you turn it over and it's Regency, because I don't know that I've seen that, the use of that in other manufacturers. The second thing on number 3 that I want to just mention is that Regency did some different backings. This one, for example, is gold, and that's gold plated. So that's one. And that one is a darker kind of Japan gold. This one is the silver. And then lastly, they did this really dark background. And the company used a coal tar derivative to plate some of these in this Japan finish. And that's what sets these rhinestones off so much and gives them, they're not different rhinestones than others used, but the backing of it and this coal tar derivative really give it a very distinct look. And when you get used to looking at Regency, you can spot this stuff a mile away. You can look in a cabinet and go, boom, that's Regency, because of the way the stones look against the setting. Okay, number 4 talks about Regencies, and they're really well known for their butterflies. You know, they've used these striking rainbow colors in their jewelry, but they're really known for these butterfly pins. And I have just a couple of examples. It's not something I collect, but I had a couple to show you. You can see how similar those two butterflies are. Some of them have these earrings to match the butterflies, and often you'll find them without. The other thing they did in butterflies was they did butterflies with just their wings closed, so that you just have half of the brooch that you'll see. But these are really beautiful examples. People who collect butterflies, and there are a lot of them, really, you know, they really love to have Regency, again, because of the way those stones sit in against their settings is just very striking and very distinctive. The last thing that we're going to talk about, number 5, is just the difference in some of the specialty stones that Regency used. And on this tray, you'll see several examples. I wanted you to know that Regency does just the plain, you know, crystal rhinestones. So there's a pretty example of that. You don't see it a lot for Regency, or maybe I just haven't found it a lot, but that's an example of their clear crystal jewelry. Then this one is the one that I showed you with the Regency tag, and this one's a very unusual piece for Regency. Even the backing is different, but you can see it's used these faux pearls that are set in what's called a dog tooth setting, and then the big rectangular faceted rhinestones. In this corner, if you look very closely, you can see this is a different from the drop stones that I showed you, but a similar shape to it. But it's a striated art glass stone. So there's actually little strands of white glass that go through this dark green stone. This one in the corner is a faux pearl, pearlized covering over the stone. So it's set in that really dark Japan setting with some beautiful topaz and aurora borealis, which we've talked about before, stones with this pearlized. And then the one in the middle is really my favorite. I was really happy to find it. I traded this with my girlfriend at a convention, and this is sapphirette. And I want you to look at these sapphirette stones, because what they are is they're this brown stone, but they have a blue tint to them. Very, very, very collectible pieces in any manufacturer. So look for those sapphirette stones. They come all the way from, you know, the 1920s to, you know, companies that use them or similar examples of them in more contemporary rhinestone, and I'm talking contemporary between 50 and 70, which is what we learned from Regency. So what a combination of colors in this one. You've got the light blue, navette shaped, the champagne colored, and then the beautiful sapphirette stones. I hope you've enjoyed this video and looking at some beautiful pieces of Regency jewelry, learning a little bit about them. Courtney and I thank you for joining us. And remember that at the end of the video, there's 2 other things for you to look at. There's an example chart of all the signatures, because sometimes it's hard to really show those as close up as you need to. And then lastly is resources, both books you can go to that have more information on Regency and websites, which makes it really easy to study more and find out more about Regency. I hope you agree it's beautiful jewelry. I just love Regency. And come back and visit us for the next in the series. Thanks very much for joining us. Bye-bye.